Welcome back to the third and final installment of Breath of the Wild Glitches Revisited, a 3-part miniseries that's really supposed to be just one video. I've left some of the best glitches for last, so let's just hop into things. Firstly, you might remember from the first video that one of the glitches involved getting the arrow text for the first time. Well, if you do that by having an arrow get stuck in a wooden shield, and then open your map for the first time as well, Link's head will just roll. Horizontally, vertically, that's not terrifying at all. Next, we have a couple of odd glitches, one of which was actually discovered between the making of part 2 and this video. So firstly, equip a weapon and hold R to prime it for throwing at some bad guy's head. Instead of actually throwing it, target without a shield equipped, and jump sideways by tapping both X and Y. While in the air, simply unequip the weapon and Link should get stuck in the weapon throw pose. This works for all 3 types of weapons, heavy, one-hander, and two-handers, as Link has a different pose for each of those. It will remain active until you do something other than running and jumping, but until then you can just have fun with it.
Would you like to dance?
Anime gasp.
In part 1 we looked at the smuggle glitch, and in part 2 there was both the bomb and bow smuggling. And now it turns out there's weapon smuggling as well. Unlike bow smuggling, which involved pulling out the bow as you pick up a bomb, weapon smuggling is done by holding the weapon in Link's hand, then pressing B to put it away, and then immediately pausing and equipping and unequipping a shield. This will incorrectly keep the weapon out, so go over to an object like for example a bomb, pick it up and then throw it. When you see the weapon float above and in front of his head during the throw, you know you've successfully activated the glitch. From here you can do basically whatever, like for example activating bow smuggling and then running around with both items in Link's hands. And you could also do the same thing, setting up the weapon smuggling, but then instead of picking up the bomb, hold whistle and the throw buttons. That should cause Link to sort of just vibrate. Next up, here's another new glitch which can simply be called B-Lock. Its setup is just like weapon smuggling, interrupting the put away animation by equipping and unequipping a shield. Once active, you won't be able to use B to sprint. Jumping, running, and even shooting arrows will not break the B-Lock, but anything that forces Link to change his animation, like gliding or swimming for example, will break it. While you have B-Lock, holding B doesn't seem to do anything while moving, but as soon as you stop, Link will be stuck in place, even if it's mid-walk animation. Doing this, you could actually get Link to moonwalk, which is pretty funny. You can also take it a step further by targeting while in B-Lock, side hop, and mid-air, let go of ZL and instead press B. Link should start sliding all over the place, at least until you stop moving. At first it seems like it's great for going up steep slopes, but if at any point Link would normally stop and slide backwards while walking up a slope, the same will happen during the slide, which breaks the B-Lock. Back at a standing position, if you whistle, Link will do so with the bow in his hand. If you hold target, whistle, and the bow button, Link will prepare to shoot an arrow while it's sticking through his head. As soon as you let go of ZR, after the next whistle animation completes, he'll let the arrow fly. You could also hold whistle and the bow button, and then let go while mid-air, which will cause Link to be able to run around with a arrow active and ready. And the last thing here is that it's actually a small little quirk that I found while messing around with this glitch. Press down on the directional pad to whistle, and then immediately hold B. For the duration of the whistle, you can tap the analog stick to bob Link's head back and forth. Okay, so we got a few glitches involving guardians, so let's start with a real simple one. Find and destroy a guardian turret around Hyrule Castle. Drop a bundle of wood where it was, light it, and sit at the campfire. When Link loads back in, so has the guardian, and he should be pushed right down through the floor. At this point, there's so many ways of clipping that there's really no reason to do this, but it's still pretty interesting. And now, jumping into a trial of strength featuring a shield guardian, here's a couple of neat tricks. Standing in front of them, use the frost blade to attack twice and run into it. They should go sliding extremely fast across the apparently slippery floor. Now, that's not very useful, but here's something that is. While in a trial of strength, you can perform a sweet combo by attacking once with the frost blade to lock him in place, then attack again, and then immediately attack cancel by jumping and pressing the attack button again. In this trial, where there's shallow water, an attack cancel turns into a grounded jump, letting you perform a slam attack without any delay, leading to that really cool combo. Oh, and while we're on the topic of glitches related to guardians, I cannot include the fact that if you finagle an ancient guardian onto a raft like Kameha did, that big old bot will just go flying. Why? I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows, but it can even cause the Guardian to start spinning out of control, like some kind of frozen ogre. It's oddly familiar. Now here, I'd like to include a glitch actually sent in by a viewer named Alder Winter. It's pretty straightforward. He seems to have unintentionally soft-locked his game while on Dunbatog Shrine. In his words, hitting the ball really softly so that the switch wasn't completely pushed in, and it seems that the game can't decide whether it's activated or not, so it just keeps showing the door opening animation, so you're just stuck, but it's pretty neat. Now remember in part 2 we looked at that seal shield sliding, these names, where interrupting riding a seal caused your later shield surf physics to be altered? Well, apparently it can also allow you to shield surf while floating on the ground. When flipping forward off of a horse towards a wall, equipping a shield at the right moment can cause Link to go sliding away like you see here. Now, following along with that idea of using horses to perform glitches, here's something silly. We'll also need the Travel Medallion, a tool that lets you place down a rune to which you could later teleport. So, like Gaming Reinvented showed off, if you place it right on the edge of a bridge or ledge, and you place your big old horse in the way, Link can actually end up teleporting down below where he should have, because it turns out, the game will nudge your medallion rune location just a bit every time you spawn in, leading to that. I tried it, and all that happened is that I sort of doomed my horse. Whoops. Now we got a couple more horse-related glitches, but to be very clear, these two glitches, at least how I'm showing them, have been patched. Okay, so don't comment saying they've been patched, because I just told you they are. So firstly, as Gaming Reinvented showed off, if you stand in a hot spring which slowly regenerates Link's health and load a save where you're mounted on a horse in a previous patch, you will continue to gain health until the next time you dismount. I think that's because up until a certain point in the game's history, certain glitches were able to move between saves, which they later fixed. But yeah, you could also do this with icy water. The effect is just much more pronounced. Now for another fun horse-related glitch, here's one that requires you to parkour your horse across the rocks until you reach the flight range building. Oh, and by the way, credit for execution and footage of this whole mess goes to Silicat YT. So before getting into that though, let's remind ourselves how the cutscene usually plays out. Teba confirms that Link is ready to go up before having him hop on top of the Falco taxi and flying them up to Va Meadow. The issue that arises is that if you speak with Teba and initiate the cutscene while on top of a horse, it tries to both teleport you up and keep you locked in place.
Festhalten!
And now there's actually a glitch we'll look at in a bit called Locked State, but one way to initiate it is actually to sit atop a horse with very low health, shoot a bomb arrow at an NPC you're standing next to, and talk to them on the correct frame as your horse becomes not alive, I guess. This is actually an alternate way to get that whole sitting on a dead horse glitch, and as one might expect, this causes some very weird stuff.
Alles in Ordnung? Vorsicht!
However, if you play your cards right, and if the horse despawns, Link will become Stretch Armstrong.
Long,
Oh, and to be fair, this whole thing can actually just straight up kill Link. But after you respawn, the game has a tendency to place the camera at the wrong coordinates, causing it to whip back to Link. Now, let's take a deeper look at that glitchy mode that you could force Link into called Locked State. Way back in March of 2017, I ran into an odd glitch where I mounted a deer as it despawned, causing Link to become stuck. I don't think I was the first to discover this glitch, but 2 years later, it turns out that that glitch I recorded is actually a perfect example of locked state. This glitched game state is still being explored and refined, but to sum it up, locked state is where Link's position is more or less static. For example, in this clip of mine where he's standing mid-air, as well as the previous clips you saw of Link stuck on the ground with the horse, there is a somewhat consistent way to enter the lock state, which is to land on the ground with the Master Cycle as it despawns, like Kip the Great and Silcat did in these clips. It's worth mentioning here that while in the lock state, Link can actually be either grounded or falling. While grounded, there's really nothing you can do to move, and explosions will only temporarily displace your bruised ragdolling body. While in the grounded lock state, however, starting a shield surf and then cancelling it will cause you to be falling, and to go from falling to grounded again, you must perform a fall damage cancel, which involves throwing a weapon and then swapping to a different weapon. And while actually in the falling lock state, he shows it's actually possible to move by shield surfing off of a bomb, which gives Link a little bit of forward momentum. This could be done using just terrain, but bombs can be much easier to work with. And while in the shield surf's lock state, Silcat shows off it's possible to get yourself to be stuck in the walking animation. And after all of this mess, if you want to break out of the lock state, there's a few ways. Firstly, you could reduce Link's health to 0, force him to respawn somewhere else. In the example I recorded way back when, that happened to be somewhere very high up in the air. You could also rest at a campfire, open a chest, or simply just teleport away. My favorite thing, however, is that in the lock state, you could do some very incredible things. Now, you thought we were done with horses, but we're actually not. So there's actually an interesting glitch called horse sliding, but I want to be very clear that this one is still being developed and worked on, and I'm just providing a very brief overview. So it has a few different setups that work, but they all share a few key properties. First, you place your horse on a slope and stand near the part of it that is elevated. You jump and briefly shield with ZL before tapping on A to mount. And then again, you could also use Filofax's method of scoping, holding ZL then tapping X. Either way, the result is that Link's position while mounting is stored, and after riding in the direction the horse was initially facing, when you dismount, Link will actually slide towards that stored location. The distance and speed at which he slides can seemingly vary quite a bit, but in Zan's case, in this clip, it was very effective. And as the glitch becomes more understood, perhaps we could see runners horse sliding across the map in future speedruns. As we near the end of our very breathy, wildy, glitchy adventure, it's time to finally revisit the final boss of this game, Calamity Ganon. As Neo Lionel found, it's possible to send that sucker just flying. So you see, while Calamity Ganon is in the phase of the battle where he climbs across the walls, use Revolving's Gale to get up to his level bro, and plunge attack his gross mechanical legs. This can actually cause the game to incorrectly send him flying / float walking across the room. Instead of doing that, or even fighting the boss like normal, head to the right side of the room right after you spawn in. Store skew using a square bomb, and then extended shield clip through the wall like Kip the Great does in this footage of his. Once you've clipped back in bounds, you could actually navigate towards a waterfall located in Hyrule Castle and bullet time bounce all the way to the Great Plateau. Now, once you're here, after you jump off and hit a specific Y value, aka a certain height, Link will be instantly teleported back to the Sanctum, as the game really wants him to stay near the fight. But the game also doesn't want you to move, I suppose, so it tries to send you back towards the Great Plateau. This, due to its nature, could be called a Sanctum Zip, and depending on where and what you're doing as you get zipped back, the game can easily softlock, like here. None of these glitches at the end here have much use, but I do think they're very interesting, and I'd love to see more people messing around with them. And now, like we ended our very first Breath of the Wild video back in 2017, it's time for Divine Beast Ganon. In that one, I showed off that you can escape from the arena, and in this one, you can also escape from the arena. And to do that, there's actually a few different ways. Firstly, you can stasis clip using a box. Just wedge it into the corner like here, use the scope and turn. This will actually force the horse to change its position, so now when you dismount, Link should pop through the wall, but this one is very precise, and personally, I had a lot of trouble with it, so give it some time. And just like in my very first video, I'll refer to this boss arena version of Hyrule as Bow Rule, because, why not? This time around, while on Bow Rule, we're actually going to be looking at a fairly new glitchy frontier known as Hyrule Overloading. One way to do this is to head to the dining hall of Hyrule Castle, put down a bunch of items, campfires, and random junk, and enter and exit the room. The idea is that you want to despawn Divine Beast Ganon by going inside of the hall, and when you come back out, he will respawn. By doing this, and I'm serious here, for at least 170 times, it'll actually overload the game's memory, causing some very weird results. And so it's clear, doing the Divine Beast Ganon spawn loop is only one method of overloading the game, but either way, the amount you overload the game sort of gives you varying results. The key result here, however, which is also the one that you want to check to see if you've done it enough, is a bald Link, or even a bald, legless, torso-less Link in the item menu. Depending on how efficient you are, this process can take somewhere between 20, maybe even 30 minutes. The other, somewhat less tedious way of doing this is to actually arm a bunch of bokoblins with triple shot bows, spawning way too many arrows for the game to handle. However you decide to overload Hyrule or Bow Rule, you'll see a variety of effects. When cutting down trees with a weapon, they just poof out of existence, at least visually, as their collision is still present, but the texture is not. Eventually, magnesis won't be able to latch onto objects, your bombs will stop appearing, the Master Cycle can stop spawning in, and an especially noticeable effect is that Sheikah Towers will start being invisible save for a few of their platforms. By repeatedly equipping and unequipping items, you can actually get the game to have issues comprehending which item you're actually holding. It'll think that you're holding one item when you're really holding a different one, and this can be used to duplicate items. Want a bunch of bow of lights? Sure, have at it. It'll also let you drop items that you shouldn't, like for example the Master Sword. Despite during normal gameplay never being able to actually drop or get rid of the Master Sword save for placing it back in the pedestal, the game has a specific animation and text when you drop it. The glowing spinning blade will fly up into the air as text appears stating that the Master Sword has returned to the forest, which implies that developers had at one point implemented a way to get rid of the Master Sword, or maybe it's just a failsafe. Another effect is that some objects like goddess statues, mini-bosses, and various other structures just won't be present, and at a certain point water can actually unload. The entire boss arena itself will disappear, and I know this is scandalous, but you could actually walk into Gerudo Town without wearing the correct revealing outfit. So, to recap, at this point, we've seen the final boss of the game manipulated into glitching out the world to the point where the game's fundamental characteristics are broken. If you take it this far, it means that one more limit has been removed, that being the berries that stop Link from escaping this cursed land forever. Death planes? They don't exist. So you can actually run wherever you want. Even the invisible barriers located around the game's expansive border cliffs are gone, meaning that you could actually slide across the Windows XP background freely, knowing that at this point, you've truly broken this game beyond any recognition and finally mastered Hyrule itself. Thank you so much to everyone who watched this impromptu mini-series of mine, as well as all of the talented folk who contributed in the form of research, footage, and so on. I feel like at this point we've covered the vast majority of glitches that have been uncovered in Breath of the Wild, at least until something new is found like tomorrow, or the next day, and so on. No doubt we'll revisit this game eventually, at some point in the future, but just know that if you subscribe, you can expect a variety of glitches, Easter eggs, and modding goofiness from all kind of games going forward, because that's what we do here. Thank you again so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.